So anytime you're in a situation where you would like to downplay your authority, one way to downplay your authority is to decrease the number of questions you ask by increasing your use of paraphrasing. So I do a workshop for teachers on how to conference with parents. One of the things I suggest to teachers in that workshop is they ask fewer questions and try to use more paraphrases. Because if you question the parent too much, the parent begins to feel like they're a child being questioned by the teacher. Okay? So I can downplay that by making it more conversational. By using more paraphrases, I can ask fewer questions. So if we go back to the beginning picture from yesterday, and we talk about the fact that we need to create an environment where people see the difference between coaching and evaluation, this is one of the ways to create that difference. An administrator evaluating a teacher is going to use more close-ended questions. As I move this way on the continuum and I get to coaching, I want to use more open-ended questions and more confirmatory paraphrases to communicate that Jackie and Steve are partners exploring learning in Jackie's classroom. It's not this. Okay? So I've given you the initial skill sets, folks. Okay? The way you get better at this is doing it. I just wrote the blog last night on observations. And I was quoting a source of two other authors. And they were suggesting to building administrators that building administrators avoid technology for observations. They're saying avoid the iPad, avoid the checklist. And it was really interesting for me to read that because I found it to be true for myself. As soon as I have a form in front of me and I'm trying to observe the teacher based on that form, I end up missing stuff that's going on. And so I found for me just a blank sheet of paper with what it is the teachers ask me to do, and then just focus on catching what the teacher asked me to do. Okay. So, but everybody's got to play and discover their own. So part of my playing with this over the years, I discovered this process working for me. And that is, as I'm watching the lesson, I jot down in the heart column anything I might use to give approval or positive feedback to the teacher. So, think about the pre-conference with Jackie. Think about her agenda, what's important to her. Think about what she wants us to focus on, which is the flow of the lesson. And so, any positives that I want to give her feedback on, I drop down in the heart column. Okay? Skip the middle column for now. Go to the third one, that's the light bulb. In my light bulb column is where I jot down any ideas or suggestions that come to mind that I might want to share with Jackie. So if I have an idea of something she may have done differently, if I have an idea of another resource, whatever pops in my mind, that's what I jot down here. Now, important, just because I wrote it down doesn't mean I need to share it. Just because I wrote it down doesn't mean I need to share it. But as the ideas are hitting me, I jot them down. At the end, I generally go back and pick one of these that I think is the one I'm most interested in sharing. I generally only share one idea in post-conferences. There's one thing for the person to walk away with. Now, the center column is where I record questions. And two kinds of questions can emerge. The first one I call questions for me. So Jackie's asking me to coach her, and there's some things I don't understand. Like, I noticed your kids do this without any direction from you. How did you get that to happen? Okay? Or I noticed this student has a off-task behavior, and you ignore him the whole time. Tell me about that. You know, and she may give me that whole history about that student that I didn't know. In other words, the purpose of those questions are for me to understand before I go further in my conference. The rest of my questions are for reflection. Reflection meaning I'm going to get Jackie to think by the questions I ask. Now, if I can plant this seed in your mind, in the post-conference, you want to find out what the teacher thinks before you share what you think. A common mistake we make when we step into coaching and mentoring and administrative roles is to tell people what we're thinking before we find out what they're thinking. Now, bring this back to your classroom. Is it helpful for you to know the thinking process your students are using to reach the decisions they're reaching? It's much easier as a teacher to figure out where to go when I hear that. Okay? If Jackie's seeing it tremendously different than I'm seeing it, I'd like to know that before I say something. Now, doesn't mean I won't say it, but I'm just going to be much more comfortable if I have her opinions out first.